We don't do that. You just don't go to a street in Chicago or in Omaha or someplace and drop your kid off and say, hey, kiddo, see you later. Have a good time. We don't do that.
Monitoring their internet is a whole job in itself.
The challenge that the internet presents in our generation and parenting in this time is that we do in fact do that with 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds where they might not be harmed physically, but they can be harmed psychologically. I can almost guarantee you, you're on the wrong path. That's a hard one. Why do you have to put a hard question like that?
Hey guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Sarah.
And I'm Solo.
We are parents of 11 kids.
11 children and 1 dog.
Today we're going to talk about what we believe is the biggest parenting challenge these days.
Yes, the biggest challenge, probably almost of all times.
Yeah. It feels like it right now. And that is electronics, in particular the internet.
The internet, the wild web.
Parenting with the internet. I tell my parents all the time, you don't know real parenting until you've tried to parent in the internet age.
I know, it's amazing how we survive. We live the good life.
Yeah.
And we had no idea.
We were just laughing about when you meet like an old man who's like, I refuse to get the internet. He has a flip phone. He doesn't even have a smartphone. You're kind of jealous.
I know a guy like that. Yeah. I know.
Like,
his wife does the internet. His wife does the text and all that. He just has a flip phone. And he lives his life. And he's a happy guy.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff he doesn't know though.
Yeah, that's true. So there's a lot of benefits to the internet and electronics in general, but there are so many challenges that come when it comes to parenting kids and keeping a balance and keeping their innocence and keeping their childhood and all of that. And I think the biggest takeaway we want you to come away with after this discussion is really that when you're aware and you're doing something about it, you're in the right place.
Right.
And so we're not coming like, oh, this is the expert opinion, this is what you have to do. You are the expert for your home.
Yes.
We are the experts for our home and our kids. We have a lot of kids and we have 4 teenagers, and I would say very confidently that every kid is different even.
Yes.
Although we have standards in our home, because it would be very unfair to have a different standard completely for every child. Every kid is different. Every situation is different. Every family is different. But like I said, when you're aware of what you're up against, really, and you're doing something about it, I think you're headed in the right direction for sure.
For sure, yeah, that's true. I think what makes it very difficult for parents is what Sarah says, awareness and maybe going by default.
Yeah.
So when you go by default, just let the chips fall where they may, I can almost guarantee you're on the wrong path. You have to have some intentionality in the way you are helping kids navigate through the internet.
Yes.
Because present is the internet, the future is the internet.
Most likely.
And so business-wise, school-wise, and then after even COVID and stuff, more of schools online than ever. You know, so you have to have the internet, but then at the same time you have things that are not good on the internet. And that's where it cannot be by default.
Yes. So let's start maybe with, because this is such a wide topic.
It's a web.
And there's a couple, there's so many different.
You didn't catch the joke.
I did get it.
It's a web. Yeah.
And there's so many different facets to it, in electronics in general, really. I think it would be easiest to start at the beginning with little kids. When you have very young kids, we are parents. We have been parents of toddlers many times. And let me tell you, when you're a parent, you get tired.
Parenting is not for sissies.
Parenting can wear you down.
It is our
And
work, yeah.
it is very helpful. I often wonder, like, what did people do when they never had a television to turn on? And a lot of people live that way nowadays, but most people don't. Never had any sort of electronics that their kids play with. I'll tell you, in our house, we do use electronics, and when electronics are being used, generally our house stays quieter and cleaner. Is it true?
I think so.
Yeah, it is true. So we try to have some real boundaries around how much electronics are being used in our house, and we'll go over why we do. But it's real. Sometimes you just want your house to be quiet and clean, and the kids can't play outside all the time. Yeah. Or this happens or whatever. And sometimes you just need, or not need, let me say, sometimes it's very beneficial.
You could use a break.
Yes. So when kids are very young, we really try to limit their exposure to electronics. We don't have them, for the most part, on school days for our young children. That is 4 days a week for us in our house. And then actually on our day off together, we try actually not to use them much either. Sometimes we end up using it for this or that. But for the most part, our general rule, I notice, and you probably notice this too, when we have a rule, like, oh, it's a school day, then you're not answering the question, no, not right now, constantly. It's just a standard.
Even though they might try, you have a simple answer to respond, oh, it's a school day.
Yes.
Yep. So, because it's not like they won't ever ask on a school day.
Yes.
Kids sometimes will try to find you when you're really busy, and you'll say yes without really thinking.
Yes.
Yeah, so kind of
exactly right.
By having those rules that you set up, it helps even you when at your weakest point.
Yeah. So I think the thing we're combating the most, or we're very cautious of the most, is the addictive part of electronics. And the fact that using electronics, to us at least, is taking away a piece of their childhood when we were using it, which is play and imagination and, role playing and being creative and being bored, right?
Oh man, yeah, it is so true. They don't know how to, just a good old-fashioned boredom. It's like they need to learn how to be bored. You know what amazes me sometimes is how much of a distraction it is for adults that are grown up. That sometimes have you ever been like in a conversation with an adult and they keep like looking at their phone over and over again because they're connected to something. And I'm thinking, if full-grown adults who did not grow up with the internet in their hand, on their face constantly, can actually be that distracted and pulled, what kind of a pull is it? Imagine young minds that are still developing, brains that are still developing, if they're not measured and don't learn how to control the internet for themselves, it can have an addictive element that there's no doubt in my mind it will be destructive to their development.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so we really try with our young ones. A few things that we do is, for the most part, if they're watching a television, it's in our main room where we see exactly what they're watching. We don't have regular TV, so they are not seeing commercials. We have found that we don't want them to see commercials because there's a lot of things going on in commercials, a lot of things that we don't want them to see. To us, it would ruin their innocence maybe. There's also so much commercialism and consumerism. So when it's in the main room, if they are watching, there's a couple things we let them watch on YouTube, then we are seeing what they're seeing, and we're able to interfere if we want them to look away or just, skip something or whatever.
And what I've noticed through that, doing that as a habit, I've just noticed some of them already know. It's like, hey, commercial, let's skip this. Yeah. So they kind of learn. It's like, because it's always, this happened some years back. I think it was like you're watching, I think it was just kind of like a Charlie Brown thing, Thanksgiving thing on TV with kids, where it's a kids show, which is fine and you feel safe with kids watching it. But then the commercials in between were not kids shows. And so you realize just because it's a kids show, it doesn't mean that that's all they're gonna see.
Yes.
You can't just walk away unless you train them. So, but what I've noticed though now, with some of the younger kids, they've grown up knowing that we skip through that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't even have to tell them to skip it. They tell me to skip it when I forgot, you know, so it's
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a couple things they're able to do on our computer when they're young, and they know exactly what that is, and it's rare times that they are allowed to play it. But I think it's important to know as parents, when you're letting your kids play computer games or anything that's connected to the internet, a lot of them are connected to the World Wide Web, and they're playing with other people.
Yeah.
So we are very cautious about not playing any games that are connected to the internet, because we found that out the hard way. Not in no bad situation happened, but we realized they were playing a game and their friends were involved in the game, and we're like, how is that possible? You know, and so we learned, okay, wait a minute. If their friends can be involved in that game, who else can be involved? And so that's really important to know as a parent, is that they can be connected. Games geared toward very, very young children even are connected often to other people. So that's a big thing that we watch for. And then he has an iPad that once in a while he'll let them play 1 or 2 apps that are just for little kids, and they're right near us if they're doing that. So there's very little opportunity for them to be on the internet, but we are always watching what they're doing, and we're very careful about what they are able to do on there. So it sounds like it's a lot of time that they're online or watching stuff, but
it is a lot of time when you count. For us, it's just multiplied a lot of times.
Yeah, that's
so,
true. Right,
got
a lot of kids. Yeah.
So
as kids are growing up, we noticed in our family that they get interest in different things. Like we have some kids that would like to watch a show. That would be their idea of entertainment. And other kids have no interest in electronics at all. We do have a couple of those that just really are not drawn to it in any way.
Not as much, yeah.
Yeah, and then we have other kids that are more interested in the computer games or something more interactive. So it's interesting to watch their different personalities for sure. And just like adults, we all have our own thing that more entertains us. And so based on what they're drawn to more, we can use it as incentives. Like, oh, you know, if you finish all of this during your school week and you've done all these things that you're supposed to, you can get some time on it, you know, whatever. It can be great incentives too.
Yeah, so we are not like anti-internet at all. We fully realize that our kids' world revolves around the internet way more than our world did. You know, all of us were involved in businesses, the transformation of things going more and more digital. We've seen that progression. They're born into the digital world. So we are not like, you cannot use the internet and stuff. The element that we take on is being able to help kids recognize that it's like, the internet is like a whole world as it is. So how can they learn as they get older, how can they learn how to live with the internet? Here's an analogy I've used with parents before, even in the church and different things like that. You cannot take your child to a park that's full of kids from everywhere and all sorts of people and adults and everyone, and even if it was all kids, and just leave them there, drop them off there by themselves.
Like a 5-year-old.
Like a 5-year-old. We don't do that. You just don't go to a street in Chicago or in Omaha or someplace and drop your kid off and say, hey, kiddo, see you later. Have a good time. We don't do that. Just because there was a daycare nearby or a slide nearby. You know, we know that in a physical sense, that would be done to do that. It's not safe for the physical safety of your child. But sometimes what the internet presents, the challenge that the internet presents in our generation and parenting in this time, is that we do, in fact, do that with 5-year-olds and 3-year-olds and 6-year-olds, where they might not be harmed physically, but they can be harmed psychologically, which has a lot more impact long term.
Yes.
And that's kind of the way we want to look at the internet. It's just a whole world, but access to really bad streets and little unsafe areas is just really close inside your home. And that's kind of the whole idea of thinking about it. So establishing like healthy boundaries and also an ability for them to regulate just to help themselves not be taken too much, where the addictive element of it, that the kids can't think, they can't carry a conversation outside the internet, they cannot even enjoy any kind of entertainment or creativity outside of the internet. That's kind of, in general, summarizing the thought through it. And I know the practicals of how you implement that is different, but at least helping theorize the reality of the life that we live in,
Yes.
just as a foundation. So then you can establish some steps that fit in your home and around your family and around your values.
So we have a computer in our main area of our house that's very visible to everybody in the house, and then we have a TV, like I said, that's very visible to everyone. So you see it on YouTube all the time. And we also have passwords on all our computers so that whenever a child is logging on, we know about it because we have to put in the password. We have our internet also protected with a password, but like he said, you don't go and leave your kid in a park alone. And so we feel the same way about, like, if our child would have the internet in their room by themselves, it is the very same thing as leaving your child alone with strangers, because you're leaving your child alone with strangers. So as our kids get older a little, those same computer games, maybe they want to be on a game that can connect to other people. There are ways to turn off that connection with other people so they can just play the game themselves or play with their siblings, or we can approve it just for like the friends that we know that they would want to play with, or different things. As they're getting older, there's different things that we allow, but we also try to just protect them. We want to protect their innocence.
Yep.
We want, you can see an image as a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old that can stay with you for the rest of your life. We want to protect them from pornography. We do, because we don't want them to, we know the dangers and the addictions of pornography and how much it can affect the rest of their lives, their relationships, different things. We work with families all the time as pastors, and we have seen over and over very young people very addicted to the internet, the electronics, their cell phones.
And exposed to things that, man, kids should not be, they should be kids. The other thing is the bullying. Back in the day, there were a few bullies, always bullies. There's always going to be bullies until the day the Lord Jesus Christ comes back. There will always be bullies in the world. But you used to deal with those bullies at the playground, at school and stuff, and you manage that. Now, they bully them emotionally. I mean, it happens so fast on the internet. We being online, we see bullies that try to bully us, but we can handle that. You know what I mean? But think about that multiplied with kids who have no filter, and how awful things can be said to them and have so much damage, psychological and emotional damage. That's another reason to help kids. It's our duty as parents to protect our kids spiritually, emotionally, and physically. Sometimes, unfortunately, we neglect the emotional protection because we are unaware of the world, the mental world that they're engaged in. And so...
Also, I think it's fair to talk about.
Do I sound a little preachy, like a pastor here?
We really want to help parents, because we've seen over and over, and it's worth mentioning that predators also can target children, and the way they are manipulative, you will think you have the best child that never gets in trouble, never does anything wrong, but also can be very much prey to a predator who is good at manipulation. And you have a child maybe that loves to please their parents and do everything, and can easily fall into something that you would never have suspected that child, especially that child, would have fallen into. Because they don't want to
disappoint you. So they'll never,
And so let's talk about, as they're moving into teen years, and it can happen even earlier than that, so that is really important to know. But it is so important that kids are protected. We believe that it's our job as parents to protect them. So our job is not to shelter them to the point that they don't know anything about the world at all.
That's not even what we are talking about.
Not at all.
Yeah, that's not even the way we live.
And we were preparing them to live in a world that, like, one of our jobs is online. The world is online. Like, we're preparing to live in a world that's online, and very likely they will work in some aspect online. So it's not to shelter them completely from the online world at all, but it is our job to protect our children.
Yeah, it's having them be in command of their soul, command of their mind, command of their life, while living in this culture. So how can you make them control their internet usage, as opposed to their internet usage controlling them? And that's where the difference is. I remember one time there was a young kid I gave a ride to that was doing a game with my kids. and had a fawn. It was just a little kid early on in life, and I just thought, oh my goodness, this is not good. The kid could not have a conversation. He was already indebted on the iPhone that he had like a 10, you know? And it's so sad. And to see even those kids when they start growing up, for sure you know it's going to impact them psychologically.
When we're talking about training our kids, we want them to really know not just avoid porn. If you see a bad picture, click off. No, we want them to really know why we would even say that, right? How it can affect your life going forward. I think we kind of talked about that, but it's really knowing the why makes them more motivated to avoid it themselves. I know that's how I was trained myself, is the why. This is why we don't do it, because this is what it could lead to, and this is how it sticks with you, and this is how it could affect your relationships in the future, and mess with your brain, you know, mess with your mind. And so we're teaching our kids not only avoid it, but this is why you want to avoid it more as they're growing older, obviously, when they're able to handle that information, because we want them to want to run away from it themselves, you know? Right,
and the idea is not to be afraid, is to recognize for themselves, like why is in, I'm not, oh, I'm so afraid, I'm so weak, I can't control myself. No, it's just being able to kind of keep your mind clear, keep your mind healthy, keep your heart healthy, keep your, keep yourself pure. You know, being able to do that, not just to avoid it so that your mom and dad will not say, oh, you can't do this. Right. No, that's not the point. That's setting them up to fail.
Yes, and at the same time, we're also teaching them not everybody online is who they seem.
Who they say they are.
Who they say they are. They are hiding behind their computer or their phone themselves. And so what you see is not always what you get online. We talk about that a lot in our house, so that we are trying to help them avoid falling prey. Just like we have the conversation, like, what if a stranger wants to take you home because they said mom and dad said it was okay. We just had this conversation recently. We talked about it actually here in this house, how we had the conversation. But one thing I never told you is that we set up a password in our family. It's a family password that only we know. So if that person that wants to pick you up has the password, then you'll know it's safe. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing online. Like, we're telling our kids, you don't just believe everything you see online, or, you know.
Exactly.
Same thing. And then that self-regulation, that self-control is a whole other area.
Because some kids are drawn to it. Like, for example, just to give you a couple case in points, two different kids, as they're growing up, we found that there are different needs. One was drawn to, like, when they got into these chat things with their friends, and they were just using it way too much. I'm like, man, you got to know how to use it enough and not get it. And the kids,
it was something we had the password for, and we could see it, but we weren't always checking it. And then,
right, and it just seems to get out of control. But that child was driven by social element, you know. And so we thought, could you feel that need and deregulate the overly usage of the internet for that need? It's more in-person opportunities to connect and relate and to play with friends. And so that and then we have another child that was not the issue. It was more like entertainment. They are drawn to the entertainment element of it. And so then we dealt with that differently too.
Yeah, so much of school, I think, I believe it's the same with just even high school, public schools and middle schools. They're sending kids home with computers, so it must be the same. But so much of school is online. So if you're in that kind of schooling environment, you can't just have a blanket statement of, we do not do any computers when they're that age.
No.
They have to be on the computer for different things. And so if they're distracted by other things, what can we do? How do you self-regulate? You know, you can put up different things that don't let you in certain websites, and websites that you're drawn to just click on, you know. And even as adults, this is something we deal with. So we know that when the child is in our house, I actually welcome, I think you feel the same way, but I welcome when a kid is struggling with something and we have to work through something when they're in our house, because that is a great time for them to have the support of their parents and the wisdom of their parents. Hopefully they're willing to listen to their parents, and let's work through it now, because you can have to work through this at 23 by yourself. And it can be a challenge, like, oh, my job is online, but I keep clicking on all this other stuff and I'm not getting my job done. Well, it's pretty soon you're fired from your job. You know what I mean? Welcome the challenges while they're in your home, and you can help them. Okay, you know, you have these conversations like, well, listen, this stuff is a challenge.
Yep,
so how can we solve this? And actually, we love asking our kids questions. How do you think this should be solved?
Right, and oftentimes they know the answer and they need that peer support, or they need that parental support and guidelines, or just accountability, just knowing that they're struggling with this, and that they are growing. And the best joy that I've seen even is that when you see them grow, it's like, yeah, they got through this and they are able to grow through those challenges and be in command and be able to kind of discipline themselves and not be controlled. That to me is such a satisfaction to just see it in kids. It's like we didn't like drop the hammer and say no. Well, sometimes you have to as a parent, but helping them walk through it to where you're coaching them through dealing with those challenges, because it's something as a human being you will deal with different kinds of challenges like that, even temptation. And so how do you deal with that in your life and be able to overcome it and come through? That's what we want. It's not just like compliance. It's shaping the heart so that your wisdom is you're gravitating towards making the right kind of decisions in times of pressure. You know, so
absolutely. So a few very practical things we do with our teenagers. I mean, we would love to not have cell phones as a thing.
Yes.
But once they are out of the house a lot, I mean, we're homeschoolers, so for us, they're not really out of the house a lot and often, regularly rather, until they're working or driving, which is always around 15 or 16 when they got their driver's license, or when they at 15, some have gotten a job. So far. That's about the time where we want them to have a cell phone, because it is so beneficial when you can get a hold of your child, you know. And I'm sure you guys feel this way if your kids are in a more traditional school where they're leaving the house all the time. It's such a benefit of the technology, right? And it's so great to be able to get a hold of your kid, or they can text you like, oh, you forgot to pick me up, or whatever, you know what I mean? It's so helpful to have it, and they're not having to ask somebody else and all these things. So for us, cell phones have been the right answer. I know some families are like, especially when they have 2-year-olds, they'll be like, my kid will never have a cell phone. It does work for a few parents, but it is really hard to not have some way when it's possible to communicate with your kids. So for us, what we have found through the years in trial and error is that what's worked best for us is a non-internet cell phone. We just don't feel comfortable with our kids having the internet in their hands all the time. As they grow and learn, they get better at that self-regulating behavior and all those things we've talked about. And as they're adults, they'll have to learn how to handle that responsibility. So we have a Gab phone. This is not a sponsored video at all, but Gab does offer a phone and I believe watches for kids that are not on the internet at all. Well, let me tell you one funny benefit of that is there's no map. So Belle, she's not good at directions. She will tell you this if she was sitting here right now. And she can't rely on her cell phone to help her get places. And so it has forced her to really learn directions very well.
Yeah.
Like those smartphones are making us dumber sometimes.
Yes.
So it has had, at first we were like, oh man, that's hard. But she actually looks things up ahead of time, draws herself maps and things, and she knows her way around. Really good. Yeah.
It helped her during that year where she had to she was driving with her cell phone that doesn't have internet.
Yes.
And she's become a good direction person, and she was terrible at directions.
Yes.
So actually it ended up benefiting more than one way.
Yes.
Help her get
We'll put a link to Gab down below. Maybe we'll find an affiliate link or something. So when our children get a cell phone, then a non-internet phone, they'll have that until about the time that they're 18. And that's just what we're doing right now. That's what has, we only have 4 teenagers. We got a lot to go. But that's what's working for us right now.
At the moment, yeah.
Yeah, it seems to be the best. And
for us.
If you're doing something different, that's like we said in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like we said in the beginning, you got to figure out what's right for your family, your kids, what you can monitor. Because monitoring, brings me back to the first point. Monitoring their internet is a whole job in itself. When you
Right, and I know even the main companies, they have ways you can monitor it. It's just as much, it really goes to it comes down to the family. Just going by default, you're already failing yourself or your kids, because it's hard. It's hard enough for adults. I think that's the whole, it comes down to it is not so much the rule as much as helping prepare them so they don't become victims of the internet, but rather utilize the internet for the good that it can be, but not the internet controlling them.
Yes, I think what's interesting is it is actually a job to keep up on.
Oh, it's hard.
It is hard.
And guess what? Kids know that it's hard.
And kids are smarter than us. They know their way around. And I think why we ended up with a non-internet phone is, although there's so many ways to regulate the more traditional phones that everybody has, that we heard just too many stories of kids who figured out loopholes and ways around things. And for us, we just want something that we know, this at least one thing is taken away that we don't have to worry about. We also do collect their phones most nights when we remember to, and
we don't collect them. We have a spot that they put it in. We don't go around collect. They know, like, so they have a certain time, certain ages have like, hey, if you have a phone at this time of night, this is where you put your phone. You know, so you're not taking, So, and then the other thing too, when you, and again, this is another topic that we can have a full hour, we could have a podcast about it for a whole year.
Because it's such a big thing.
It's a web. Because the thing is, if a kid is trying to sabotage, like, and going around and figuring out the filters, you already have a bigger problem and so sometimes it can be kind of productive when they're not catching the reasons. So again, it's not so much the rules as much as it's shaping and having conversation points. So hopefully for kids who have a humble disposition in terms of just learning from people, their own parents, you know, they can then you can help them through that. And so if their kids are smart, they can figure out I knew more technology than my parents did. And I want to think my kids know more technology than I do, even though I've been working with it for a long time. And so that's the whole thing.
I think for us, maybe you would agree or disagree. I don't know. For me personally, just having non-internet phones is one less thing, because
to deal with.
I can't believe how many things are connected to the internet and how many resources kids can find if they are drawn to something, like you said. So the most important thing is teaching our kids and really telling them about the consequences and all of that, the reasoning, all of that,
and
watching their behavior. But if there's a will, there's a way, whether they have a non-internet phone or not. I think just removing one of those things, the one that follows them around all day,
it makes the job way easier. No, I don't know why you said whether I agree or not. I agree with you 100%, because that's what we do. I was just adding to the element, if you do not have that kind of phone, you know,
we're on the same page.
You're on the same page. 1 + 1 is 2.
Most of the time.
We're on the same page.
We also differently. I also am aware of, like, if I'm on my phone all the time in front of them, and when I'm talking to them, trying to do on my phone at the same time, that's setting an example for them. So there's so many.
It doesn't help them.
So many aspects to this. I mean, we really could go on and on forever. Let's just end on a light note.
Well, okay. Before I get to a lighter note, let me just get it off my chest.
Okay, get it out.
Let me get it out my chest. No, it is a real challenge because it doesn't affect only kids. It affects adults, and
we're trying to raise adults.
And so the thing is, like, if it's that much challenge for adults, you know, kids, their brain is not even formed, and if they're boys, they could be 25 and their brain is not even fully developed. And so it's just a matter of just walking through this and helping our kids succeed.
Can I say, we've seen examples even on the news of kids who were completely kept away from it their whole childhood, no internet,
and
then they grow up, move out of the house,
and completely unprepared
and
to deal
completely
with
out of control with the internet. So it's balance and it's discernment. It's knowing. Some would call it your intuition. You have to stay on guard as a parent.
And helping them through the process. And it's like, Lord, just help my kids to have a learning spirit, a learning heart, a teachable heart.
Teachable heart.
A teachable heart, because a teachable heart, so is really what it comes down to. Because like, man, I'm not trying to make your life hard. I want your life to be easy.
Yes. Yeah.
I just want to help you,
yes,
so that you can be successful. So
yeah.
and like, God help us. And that part of it, parents, pray a lot. Because sometimes you could do all you want to do.
Yeah.
But you just gotta pray for your kids.
Yep.
Gotta pray for your kids.
We've definitely experienced the Lord showing us something
Yeah.
we had no idea. And you're just like, oh, thank you, Jesus. Like,
Yep, then we can deal with it now,
Yep.
Yeah.
My mom always told me when I was a kid, like, the Lord will show me what
I
he
need
needs
to
show
see.
me. That put the fear of God in me. I knew it. He will,
Wow.
and he did.
And he
was
will.
sure.
If you're a praying mom, a praying dad, the Lord will show you what
Yeah.
you need to see when you need to see it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so the lighter note.
Okay.
I want to know from you. So there's so many good parts of the internet. We didn't even cover it. We tried to be a good part of the internet. I just put up
I
a
hope
video
so.
today about packing. I couldn't believe all the wealth of knowledge and advice that
Yes.
was so incredibly helpful. Their internet is wonderful for so many things. Our kids know that too. And it's just like, there's this horrible part and there's this wonderful part. And so I want to know from you, if you had a choice, would the internet be a thing in this world if it was all up to you, or not a thing in this world? What do you think?
Oh boy. Yeah, that's a hard one. Why do you have to put a hard question like that? Before I knew the internet, I would have... No, I don't know. I think there'll still be the internet in the world for me.
You would? I would
Yeah.
say probably not. Although I do love so many aspects of it. I think if I could just choose for the whole world, I would say, let's go back to non-internet.
I don't even know if we would be married if it wasn't for the
That's
internet.
true. Well, it was just email. Yeah, well, I
Well,
guess
email
so.
is
Yeah.
connected to the internet. Yeah.
That's true. We could have written
The calls
letters.
were so...
We met in person. We didn't meet online.
No,
So
we did not.
We could have written letters.
We continued to talk through the internet.
It did help.
The cost of calls from Kenya to the States, it was like $400 a minute,
Yeah.
or 400 shillings a minute.
We would have known less about each other when we got married.
It was $5 a minute to talk back then. Yeah,
But
man.
our emails only came like once a week because you had very spotty.
No. We had emails every day.
What? I don't remember that.
Yes.
Okay, I do want to tell you one funny story though. This week I was telling Solo, there's two people I follow that just teach influencers or online business women, really. That's what it is. They teach online business women. And one of them taught a lesson this week about how when you go slow, everything works out eventually. Don't worry about going fast. You'll eventually get it all done. And the other one, literally the same week, taught about how when you go too slow, nothing's gonna happen. You need to go fast and let the chips fall where they may, and at least be moving fast, and it will work out. Like literally opposite advice. And both of them sounded great to me. I was so confused by the end of the week. Like,
the moral of this story: find your own rhythm, find your own pace, and make it work.
You can get
right?
any opinion on the internet
Yep.
and get many
equally
sources
compelling,
to back it up.
equully compelling opposite arguments.
Yeah, so that's why
Yeah.
I would think I would vote probably just no internet, because sometimes you get too confused. Guys, thank you for watching today. We really do appreciate you. I love my comment section. I learned so much from it. And we'd love to know your thoughts about the internet and what you do in your home maybe, or what your opinion is on if we should have it or not.
If we should have it?
The world.
Okay.
As if we have any.
I don't want an opinion from you whether we should have it or not.
No, yeah.
But I could like to hear what you do for yourself.
Yeah.
That would be exciting to see. Yeah.
We also do have a parenting book out, and I'll put links down below for it. I have a link in every video now, I think. And we do talk about parenting values, so you can check that out too. Thank you, guys.
She's the author, not me. All right. No, I'm kidding.
His examples are in there too.
All right.
We'll talk to
See
you
you
soon.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.